Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for Fantasy Premier League content for the 2020-21 season. My name is Dan and today I'm going to be making some very final tips for you for Game Week 38. Now this is going to be a fairly short video. It's not going to be very well edited because I'm trying to squeeze this in as kind of a bonus video in a way for those of you who are unavailable for my stream and you know I can't give the extra advice there. I can give it to you nice and early here if it's useful to you, and hopefully it will be. So we're going to be going over some final tips for the Game Week, and if you do enjoy this video, please do like the video and of course subscribe if you're new around here. But I don't think there's much point in waffling on, so let's just get straight into it. So Game Week 38, we're all going to have slightly different goals. So some of you are going to want to get to a certain rank. For example, you might want to reach to the top 100,000 places, maybe top 10,000 places. Maybe you just want to get into the top million or top 500,000 or just beat your last season's score. Something like that. We all have our own goals. Maybe you're trying to stay within a certain rank. So maybe some of you guys are lucky enough to be in the top 10,000 players or top 100,000 players. And all you want to do is make sure you don't drop outside of that threshold. You want to stay within that. Other people will want to beat a mini league. Some of you guys have very competitive mini leagues, maybe some money involved in some of your mini leagues, in which case, good luck, guys. But of course, if that's the case, you're going to have to change your tactics and tweak it for that as well. So what you kind of want to do, and by what deficit you have to do it by. So are you 100 points away from the league leader? Are you 10 points ahead of the league leader? Are you 20 points outside of the top 100k? Are you 1 point within the top 100k? That's all gonna affect our level of risk that we basically want to take, and how are we going to do it? So I'm going to split this into two kind of parts. One part for if you're chasing and you want to boost your rank, and the other if you're doing well and you want to protect your rank. And then we're going to do a final few tips at the end as well. So we'll start off, guys, with if you're chasing and you want to boost your rank. Now, the first tip, if you want to boost your rank at the end of the season, would be to transfer in 1 or 2 differentials, potentially with a -4 if you think that a -4 can be worth it. This is a risky tactic. You know, this is if you're happy with your rank, I probably would not be considering taking -4s unless you really thought it would be a good move to make. But yes, you can potentially take a -4 if you think both of these players are going to outscore the 2 players that you're removing by more than 4 points. That's kind of the golden rule, right? So these 2 players you're bringing in, you have to be very confident that they're going to very much outscore the players that you're taking out. So that's kind of what you've got to be looking at. So we've got to be thinking about some differentials. I've thrown some differentials on screen for you right now. Of course, I did a whole video about this just the other day. So go check out my differentials 1 week punts video of the week. I've uploaded that like yesterday, so yeah, that's available to you if you want to go into some details on some specific differentials that you should be going for. But what I would say in general is if you want to make up rank, we've got to go for some big hitting differentials. So differentials, they're not just differentials, but differentials who have the capability of these really big, nice scores. So Mane against Crystal Palace, huge differential, big hitting player. You know, he's had some huge scores in the past. He'll get some huge scores in the future. Why not this game week? He's in pretty good form as well. We've kind of got Wood against Sheffield United. You could say he could easily get a couple of goals, maybe even a hat-trick. I'm not saying he's going to get a hat-trick, but he's at least a player who has that chance of getting the hat-trick, and that's kind of what we're looking for. You can go for Antonio, kind of a little bit of a differential. We've got kind of Firmino, he's going to be a differential if you can't get to Mane. We've got Iheanacho, who I think quite a lot of people have actually sold Iheanacho, so he could be one of those big hitting differentials as well. But all these players I've mentioned have the capability to get a big score. If you're bringing in a differential who is kind of like, you know, like a 5.5, 6 million midfielder or something like that, who is realistically only going to get you an assist or just like 1 goal at absolute best, then that's probably not the kind of player you want to be going for. You want a player who you could genuinely look at and say, this player could get me 15 points, because that's what we're going for. We want to go for the players who can have that capability of getting the huge scores. Maybe more often than not, they don't get the huge scores, but we need the capability to get that, because that's going to be making that difference for you. So, you may have to sell players like Bruno, Son, Kane to fund these moves, and that is kind of a risk in itself because these players are so heavily owned. Loads of people have these players. But basically what we're going to be doing, if we're chasing, is we're going to be hoping, praying, betting on the fact that Bruno will blank, which I don't even think Bruno's going to start, so that could be a good thing. Son's going to blank. I think there's a good chance of Son blanking. And Kane's going to blank. Now, that's the riskier one out of the 3. I don't think that Kane... I wouldn't bet that Kane would blank, but we're going to have to bet on a little bit of a miracle here, aren't we? So these are kind of the players you might have to sell. I would certainly sell Bruno and Son if you're chasing. Kane, if you can avoid selling him, then probably avoid it, but you might have to do it. And it also kind of depends on how big the gap is you got to make up. Are you miles outside of your target? If you're miles away from your target, then you're going to have to take bigger risks. If you're actually kind of close, then maybe take the smaller risks. Don't take a hit. Go for a more sensible player. Don't transfer out players that are too heavily owned, kind of thing. So yeah, focus on attacking players, not defenders. There's always more goals in Game Week 38. People kind of jokingly say that Game Week 38 is kind of like a double game week, because often we do see very, very high scores. I think my Game Week 38 score last season was like 90 points. Not because anyone had a double, not because I had a particularly amazing squad, but just because there's so many goals in Game Week 38 typically, because it's just a weird old week where that so many teams have loads to play for, so many teams have nothing to play for. It creates some really crazy scores. So do go for the attacking players rather than the defending players. Definitely. Don't go for high ownership players already. I've kind of touched on this already, but don't. If you're thinking of buying in Kane, don't. If you're thinking about buying in Bamford or Dallas, they are good options for this week, obviously, but they're not going to be players that make the difference. Everyone else has Bamford anyway. Everyone else has Dallas anyway. So they're not going to be the ones to bring you differential points, because if you have Bamford and he scores, that's not going to boost your rank, because he's just scored for all of the other teams as well. So we do need to focus on some interesting players. You go for Chris Wood instead. Go for Antonio instead. Similar output potentials as Bamford, but if Antonio scores and Bamford blanks, then you get a massive rank boost. If Bamford scores and you have him, then you're not getting a good rank boost. You get a little one, but not a big one. So it's you got to think a little bit like that. And depending on how big the gap is that you're trying to bridge, maybe, and this is where we get to the real risky territory, maybe captain a differential. And by that, I mean anyone who's not Salah. So most people are going to be captaining Salah. By far, the vast majority. It's the best captain of the game week. It's the most sensible captain of the game week. I'm not going to tell you it's not, because it really is. Salah's the best captain. There's no real doubt about that. But if you have a huge bridge to gap, what we've got to do again is hope, pray that Salah blanks like he did last game week. So it can happen, and bet on a different player. Who are we going to bet on? Probably a player like Mane. Mane's probably the second best option. Maybe go for Bamford. I know Bamford is not a differential player in general, but he'll be a differential captain at least, because not many people will be captaining Bamford because they'll be going for Salah. So kind of think that way. There's other options as well. Antonio, Chris Wood, Rafinha maybe. But I'll be probably looking at Mane primarily, and maybe Bamford as well. So that's what you've got to do if you're trying to boost your rank. I guess if you're also trying to win a mini league, you've got a mini league rival that you want to catch up with, have a look at their team, check out their team, what their team looks like, and kind of try and pick someone who they don't have. Transfer in a player who they don't have. Maybe transfer out a player that they do have, so you can make your team as different to theirs as possible. And there you go. That's kind of what you got to do if you're chasing rank. If you're doing well, on the other hand, maybe think about being a little bit boring and protecting your rank, because this is kind of the tactic of what we're going to do. So if you're happy, you're top of your mini league by 10 points or 20 points or something like that. You're in the top 10k, you're in the top 100k, and you just want to say, let's just end this season. I'm happy with where I am. Let's end the season. And I'll go a bit quicker on this, because most of us are not going to be happy. I'm not happy with my rank, so it's kind of relatable for me. But this one is not so relatable for me, but I will try and give my best advice anyway. So if you still don't have Bamford, and you are if you're happy with your position and you don't already have Bamford, that's kind of the first player I would buy, because I think Bamford has a real chance of damaging players if Bamford does pop off, and I do think he could pop off as well. Which seems ironic that I'm saying for one set of people don't buy Bamford, for the other set of people do buy Bamford, but you do have to play it completely differently and look at the game in a different way and hope for different outcomes depending on where you are, right? And when you're chasing, it's obviously you're in a harder position, but you kind of got to take the risks. But if you're happy, you're holding, go for someone like Bamford. I would also still consider Mane. I know Mane, I've spoken a lot about being a big differential player, but I also think he's a fantastic option for this game week. So if you can get to Mane without taking a -4, if you can just straight swap from Bruno Fernandes to Mane, for example, I would just do it. I would just do that straight away. Don't even think about it. Easy peasy. Even if you're doing well, and then you kind of think about what are the most dangerous players that can hurt your rank. And there are players that can hurt your rank if you are doing well. And those players are going to be Salah, Bamford, Trent, Rafinha, Lingard, potentially Kane, Dallas. If you are doing well and you want to protect your rank, those are the players you want to buy. Salah, Bamford, Trent, Rafinha, Lingard, Dallas. If you're missing any of them, get them in. If you're chasing, these are the players you should avoid buying. But if you're protecting, you kind of want to have them because they're the ones owned by the majority of people. These are the boring picks, if you like. So that's kind of how it would be. If you're kind of protecting a mini league lead, you're winning in your mini league, have a look at who is second place in your league. Have a look at their team. Who do they have? If they have a player that scares you, buy that player. It's a bit of a morally ambiguous tactic, but it works. So if you're chasing, you want to make your team as different as possible as the guy above you in your mini league. If you are trying to maintain a top position, you need to try and make your team as similar as possible to the person beneath you, which limits their ability to catch up you on points. Okay, so just some final tips before we wrap this up. If you have a lot of United and City players, either transfer them out or make sure you have a strong bench because there's going to be heavy rotation, particularly in the Manchester United camp. Shaw's probably not going to start, neither is Rashford or Bruno Fernandes or pretty much anyone that you have. Greenwood, I would say, is the best chance of playing, but even that I would not be 100% on at all. There's going to be a rotation in general on the final day of the season. There always is. It's always a bit of a strange game week. So consider transferring out players who you don't think will play. Also, trust your gut, guys. If your season hasn't gone the way that you'd hoped, this is kind of your last chance to have some fun. Take one more roll of the dice. Trust your gut. If you end up not making a transfer that you really thought was going to do well, and you kind of thought, oh, actually, I don't want to, I don't have the balls to do that. I say just go for it. It's the final game of the season. We get to start afresh. Like, we're all going to forget about FPL for a few months. We get to start afresh again next year. Don't worry about it. Just go for it, guys. Have some fun with it. This is your last chance to have some fun with FPL for a few months. It really is. So go out there and enjoy the final game week in this crazy, crazy season. For many of you guys, this will be the last time you see my face before the Game Week 38 rolls around. I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to be making plenty of videos all the way over the summer, whether that's about FPL, whether that's about Euro Fantasy. I will still be here, guys, if you want to see me still, that is, of course. But like the video, subscribe if you're new, of course. Check out my Twitter if you want and all that stuff, and we'll talk about everything that's going on in the football over the weekend live over on Twitter for sure. But aside from that, guys, I guess just good luck for the final game week. I know you guys are all going to smash it. You've done so brilliantly, seeing all of your comments on how well you're doing. You're smashing it, guys. I'm so proud of each and every one of you. So do well, do your best, trust your gut. You can do it and have fun. Guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.